Hi there. I am the resident therapist, and I actually have a guest. Today, we're having a conversation about introspections in response to a recent dating opportunity. And I'm calling it an opportunity, you guys, because you both have to agree. Right? So when we start talking about dating, dating is two or more people, keeping in mind that there are various types of relationships. You have monogamous relationships, you have polyamorous relationships, you have relationships built out of swinging. And if any of you don't know what swinging means, it's pretty much a committed couple make a decision that they will have other sex partners together. And when it comes to swinging and polyamorous, there are absolute rules, because even in polyamorous type relationships, there's always a core, and that core has an agreement and arrangement when it comes to relationships and what that looks like. So with that being said, I want to welcome with us today a guest. I did give the option that she could appear on screen or not. That's her choice. I just know that the information and the insight from her experience will be helpful. And my hope is that it would be a greater insight from someone who's had an experience. Welcome to the platform, Reona.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. So we kind of had a conversation about some awareness that came to you. Would you like to share that with the listeners?
Yeah. So our last session, you and I, we talked about a recent dating experience that I had. And one thing I shared with you was that I think I stated specifically that I wanted him to put up a fight for me. And one thing that stood out is that you said that he was fighting for himself. And after you and I had a conversation, it dawned on me that I wasn't fighting for myself in the friendship, or that I was not, that I was willing to negotiate my needs to basically stay dating, or to stay in this, to date this man. And one thing I had shared with you was that from the beginning, I said that my love language was quality time and affection. And immediately when we started to date, he shared with me that he had an extremely busy schedule. And as we continued to date, I noticed that we didn't spend a lot of quality time. And so the reflection piece for me was that from the jump, I did not, I didn't stand on what my negotiables are, or I was willing to sacrifice something that's important to me, which is quality time, just to date this guy. And I think what stood out the most is when you and I spoke, is like you said he chose himself. And I was cracking up because I'm like, absolutely. And why did I not choose myself? And you responded and said, self-esteem. And I remember cracking up because I'm like, you're right. You know, I was willing to not own who I am, not own what I need, and not own my desires from the beginning, even though I felt like I was communicating and saying, here's my love language. This is how I like to be loved. And as I seen that those needs weren't being met, I was still willing to like move and shake. Um, and so I think the takeaway was just recognizing that you don't have to negotiate. What you need are your desires. And that, you always talk about how when women, when we date, in my mind, and what I have done in the past is like, this is my man in my head. And it's not. And so it's okay to date more than one person. You and I have talked about that plenty of times, and to know who you are and be with communicating that. So, I really appreciated our last session because it dawned on me that, he was choosing himself, but I was not choosing myself.
And that's pretty accurate. And so I just want to say that Reona has signed a release of information for YouTube and Anchor podcast. And I want to go back a little bit in reference to what Reona shared. So Rihanna used language like, I told him that my love language is spending time together and I like to be touched or something like
Physical
that.
touch. Yeah,
Physical touch. She used the language physical touch. And I thought, okay, you using language like physical touch. Whatever happened to simply expressing that you're affectionate? And then I said, what do you think he heard when you said your love language was physical touch? Do you remember that?
Yep, I remember.
Uh-huh. And what came to mind of what he might have heard?
Doing the wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and at that time you said, when you said physical touch, basically that was saying come and get it.
Yeah.
And audience, just so you know, Rihanna is a beautiful young woman. She's accomplished. She has just embarked upon buying her own property. Congratulations again on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. She's gainfully employed. She doesn't have any children. She got her thing going on. So I said all that to say that oftentimes women quantify themselves based upon what's not going on in their lives. How about what is going on? And I love the fact that even retrospectively, that Rihanna is able to share this information with you all, and understanding that someone that you're newly dating, they're not your woman or your man. They're a prospect. They are simply a prospect. Dating is an opportunity because there is the potential for gain. Let me qualify, where I'm coming from with that. And one of the main things that should be, a top gain is simply enjoyment. You're meeting a stranger, you don't really know them. Dating becomes a part of that process where we get to know. In hindsight, Rihanna, as you think about that dating situation, what comes to mind for you even now in moving forward, continuing your process?
Well, I think you and I talked about that. And one thing that I had shared was that our dating friendship was beautiful. And you had mentioned that I am finally dating potentials. And so I think this experience has allowed me to see that um, we always talk about our energy and attracting folks who are like us. And I finally feel that I'm moving in a direction where I'm dating potentials. Um, Now, I do recognize that I need to date more than one. But for me, that experience has allowed me to see that I'm starting to date men who have potential. Because as I shared with you in my past, I have just kind of the men that I have dated in my past were not potential. And so it was a great experience to see that I'm moving in a great direction and having self-awareness throughout the process. Um, I remember when I first started this journey with you, I kind of wanted to play the victim role and talk about the person that I was dating and the things that they were doing wrong. And that ended very quick because we made it more so about me and having that reflection piece on why did I choose to stay or why did I choose to date this person. And so as I'm continuing the journey with dating, I'm allowing to reflect more so on me and my decisions and not on the guy, if that makes sense.
That
So,
makes perfect sense. Because
yeah,
it's not about who you're dating, it's all about you.
right.
And so often in the dating game, women in particular, they're so quick to make it about that guy. Either they make it about that guy or they objectify that guy, right? And what I mean by objectify that guy, that for all intended purposes, the guy becomes everything they sense they didn't have. Oftentimes for women who have interacted with less than favorable, um, unpalatable partners, when they encounter a decent man, then he can't just take you out to dinner without you taking a meal home. Because you want to eat a meal on the date and you want to take a meal home. Or here come your friends who ain't ever been out on a decent date in their damn life. Now all of a sudden your new boo gets to pay for everybody. Or, just even the emotional abuse or the verbal abuse. Oftentimes, here's the deal. Our experience shows up, and oftentimes when we don't want to see it, right? There are folks that if a decent person walked up to them, they wouldn't even recognize that here's a decent person because they've been so inundated by hurt and pain and insatiable characters and things of that nature. And so, guys, this is the importance of your own self-awareness and being sincere and just present enough with yourself, right? This is what we mean in therapy when we start talking about doing your work. No one can do your work for you. And Reona is accurate. Don't come over here talking about your partner. You can only make a decision and make changes based on self. And when I say don't come over here talking about your partner, Reona mentioned that initially she recognizes that she was playing the victim role. And so with that being said, it's listen, a person can only treat you the way that you allow or the way that you allow yourself to be present, to be on the recipient. And so when we start talking about esteem, I know Reona mentioned, why would I have been so transactional with myself, knowingly that I require quality time and I require affection. And this guy that I was dating from the door made me aware that he just didn't have the time. So what she's saying there is that she made a sacrifice. She did not honor herself. And when this young man responded in the manner that he did, Rihanna's response was, I wanted him to fight for me. I wanted him to fight for this relationship. And I'm saying, how long did you know him? How long did you date him, Rihanna?
It was like 3 months.
3 months, guys. And Rihanna is asking the question, why didn't he fight for me? The reality is, what does he know about you to fight for you in the time you all spent together? And this young man he's actually seeking, I would believe, a wife. He's not seeking a girlfriend. What would you say, Rihanna, from spending time with him?
Absolutely. I think he definitely is seeking a wife, and he shared that in the beginning.
Yeah. So the part Rihanna spoke about energy, you guys, let me just give you this gift. We don't just meet people, we attract people. The way that energy moves is we all vibe on a frequency, whether you're low hanging vibrational fruit or whether you are glowing with your energy. Our frequency has everything to do with what we attract. And the way it works is we, as energy sources, we project. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Just whomsoever you are exudes in all that you do or all that you be, right? Spoken in that language with intentionality, right? And so when I say to people, look, you really need to date at least 3 people at one time, 3 qualifiable prospects. And I say 3 for several reasons. Women are emotional. We become attached differently than men. And what I mean by that is men, everybody know this, men are physical. That's why folk get so upset in the manosphere with what Kevin says all the time. Now I don't agree with much of what he does just because I recognize as a licensed clinician the impact that it can have on people who are not resilient, who are not emotionally intelligent, who don't have an emotional quotient to be able to withstand, right? And so with that being said, it all comes down to, yeah, we usually attract who we are. We really do. Now, there's a way to level up with your energy and getting on that frequency that's going to yield what it is you desire, where it's going to have congruency between what you're projecting and what you're attracting. And so that's the same thing as being in a room full of people. Haven't you ever encountered somebody that it was just something about them and you didn't know what it was, but it was just something? It was even a feel, it was a sensing, it was a knowing. That's energy. That's neurobiology, because we're all connected, whether we want to admit it or not. So with that being said, I love what Rihanna said. Rihanna recognizes that she has a field of energy and she's in her sweet spot, that she has started to attract a different kind of man. Tell us a little bit about that, Rihanna, the difference in this most latest dating situation and those before that. What did you notice more so about this particular one that you wanted him to fight for you?
So I noticed that our values aligned. I remember when I had asked you, I was like, Miss Tracy, I'm having a hard time determining who I should go on a date with, and this was me coming out of a relationship, and so I was just kind of scared. I just didn't know who to actually accept dates from or who to go on a date with, because we talked about, just briefly, you and I talked about, I remember one time I was like, And so nothing wrong with going out to dinner or something like that. And you talked about the importance of, who you choose to interact with. And so I had asked you, I was like, well, how do I know if I should accept a date? And you told me to start with your values. And if your values align, you go from there. And so I noticed that as my values started to shift and change, um, the guy that I was dating, our values aligned. And that was, that's why I said the dating experience was beautiful. I'm sorry, because I was dating someone who shared the same values as myself, where in the past, our values did not align.
Mhm. Beautifully stated, Rihanna, and that is the piece. That is the piece right there. You knew enough to be comfortable with what your values are. And you set a boundary that I'm just not going to be dealing with these jokers, and we're on a whole different side of life. You shifted frequencies, but it came for you from the place of your value. Beautiful. And so now it's time to enjoy yourself because you are intelligent, you are beautiful, you are independent, you are self-sufficient, you are compassionate, you are a lover of the Most High. I mean, you are just great people. You come from an awesome family. You have beautiful friends. You have a great job that if you chose to retire, it would still be there. When you reach retirement, you're educated formally and otherwise. Uh, so you have so many attributes and positive characteristics that any decent man would be happy to call you wife, to call you friend, to call you lover, and even mom to his kids. The deal becomes, doesn't matter what I see and what I know and I recognize. It matters what, Rihanna? What matters?
What I see and what I recognize.
Absolutely. So I want to thank Rihanna for sharing this introspective with us today on the Resident Therapist platform. And just so you guys know, Rihanna is here for several reasons, right? Because she has had such a beautiful journey and she's coming out on the other side. She did her work. And with that, and she agreed. And so from time to time, I will be bringing you guys real life experiences as encouragement. In community, it's about each one teach one, right? Because maybe someone is out there listening who trying to figure it out, right? So there's nothing new under the sun, but I think when we can bring different perspectives to it, where we can see it in action, right? Because as y'all know, I'm a storyteller, right? And it is just an honor and a privilege to be here, to be in this role, because I love love. Let me say that. I love love. And I believe Creator has created someone for each and every one. And I believe any woman who desires to be in happy, healthy relationship, I know that any person, woman or man, that desires to meet their twin fire, their soulmate, their best friend, I know that it is possible. So thank you for listening in, and I will see you on the next episode of The Resident Therapist. And thank you so much, Rihanna, for taking this time out and sharing with us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.